Before there was the United States of America, this land was far from empty. In fact, it was home to hundreds of sovereign nations. The Iroquois in the northeast, the Cherokee in the south, the Navajo in the deserts of the southwest, the Lakota and Sioux across the vast plains. More than 500 independent nations, each with their own languages, laws, beliefs, and ways of life. Today, in American collective memory, many of them survive only as names in textbooks, if that. So what really happened to the first peoples of America? Long before colonization, indigenous peoples had developed complex societies. The Iroquois Confederacy, a union of 6 nations, had a democratic-style council that even helped inspire the U.S. Constitution. In the Southeast, civilizations like the Mississippians built massive cities with earthen pyramids like Cahokia, which had more people than London in the 13th century. Their connection to the land was both spiritual and practical. Land wasn't owned, it was respected. This philosophy clashed directly with the European model of conquest and ownership. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which allowed the U.S. government to forcibly relocate native tribes from lands east of the Mississippi River. This wasn't just a relocation, it was a forced migration. The most infamous example is the Trail of Tears, when over 60,000 people from nations like the Cherokee, Muskogee, and Choctaw were forced to walk thousands of miles to Indian Territory in the West. Thousands died from starvation, disease, and exhaustion. According to the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian, more than 4,000 Cherokee died along the way. Some call it the largest ethnic deportation in U.S. history. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the U.S. government signed over 500 treaties with native tribes. Nearly all of them were broken or ignored. Many lasted only a few years before being overturned, usually after gold, oil, or other resources were found on native land. One famous example is the Treaty of Fort Laramie, 1868, which granted the Lakota control over the Black Hills, a sacred mountain range. Just 6 years later, when gold was discovered there, the U.S. Army seized the land. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the land was illegally taken and awarded financial compensation, but the Lakota refused the money. They want their land back. By the late 19th century, a new method of erasure emerged. Native children were taken from their families and placed in government-run boarding schools. There, they were forbidden to speak their languages, forced to cut their hair, wear European clothes, and practice Christianity. At places like the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania, the official policy was, "Kill the Indian, save the man." Children were kept from their families for years. The result was deep psychological trauma and the interruption of cultural transmission. In 2022, the U.S. Department of the Interior confirmed that over 400 such schools operated across the country. Some have mass graves on their grounds. Today, over 5 million people in the U.S. identify as Native American, but the challenges remain: poverty, lack of infrastructure on reservations, high suicide rates among Native youth. But there's also resistance. In 2016, the world watched as the Standing Rock Sioux protested the Dakota Access Pipeline, defending their land and water. That moment sparked a wave of activism and unity across Native communities. Young people are reviving indigenous languages, returning to traditional customs, and challenging the narratives in history books. Some U.S. states like Minnesota have replaced Thanksgiving with Indigenous Peoples Day. This story isn't just about the past. It's about how a people can be pushed to the edge but not erased, how a culture can survive even the darkest chapters, and how truth, no matter how long it's buried, always finds its way to the light. If this story is new to you, it's not your fault. But now that you know, what will you do with that knowledge?